Yeah, I just happened last night to be watching Steve Ranella, and he's got that guy on from Arkansas, and that guy had gone up and filmed for 6 days a documentary about wolf trapping. And it was flat out fascinating because even though they didn't have the guy on that has been trapping for 35, 45 years, this guy was a smart guy. And, just talking about the level of detail of how they were doing that. And obviously the wolf thing is hot right now.
Really?
Well, I think so. I mean, in terms
Well, they're
of,
sure destructive.
right, no question.
There was a deal going around on Hex that's got all the little soccer moms finally in outrage, and it's just 3 wolves pulling down about half a dozen big bull elk in the national parks, not taking a bite out of any of them, just
Killing for fun.
harassing some. Yeah, they really didn't get most of them, but yeah, I mean, they're a wild dog, Bill.
Well, and
They'll kill to eat,
Ranella,
they'll kill for fun.
knows so much. So he's talking about Yellowstone and what's
Yeah.
happened to Yellowstone, and which brings in every half-baked idea ever thought of.
Yeah, but they go through and kill them out in Yellowstone secretly
Right.
all the time.
Right.
That way they can maintain that wildlife diversity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was fun. It'd be fun to see the documentary this guy has made, and as I mentioned to you, mostly southeastern Alaska. So you're doing it right there on the coast.
Yeah.
And like we talked about, where else would you do it? It's so stinking dense there that it would really, the coast makes sense because it was washing off the human scent. So they're doing it on
Is he
the
doing it in the
log.
dead of winter?
He was doing it in December.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nasty weather.
Yeah, for some reason on the dogs, I mean, at least on coyotes, you want to be in November and December, even though it's way colder in January.
Right.
They're pretty worn out. The fur is not as good in February, even
Right.
though it's a lot colder.
Right.
That's the way it is with coyotes, at least around here. And anywhere else I've gone for them.
Right.
But, yeah, that would be interesting. It'd be neat to do like a snare line, the sheer weight of my traps. I mean, you could take a couple of them, but I don't really think it's worth it compared to what you can do with snares. I don't know what snaring's like in Alaska. I don't know that it's as popular. I mean, the Canadians have got it down, but all the way on the Atlantic side.
Right.
That's really the only way you can harvest or kill like they do for the depredation over there. And that's all you do for 24/7 for 30 days. And they do it in December, and they just do it for 30 days. And they'll get somewhere between 300 and 600, one guy.
Wow.
Yeah, coyotes. And that's for, and snares are the only way they can do that. And they just go into cattle ranches and they use the calves. They just, all natural, they use the calves as bait. And they figure, okay, these cows are calving. The coyotes are going to move in through these trees along these fences, and they just snare the living crap out of it. And go through, pick them up, and change stuff out. It'd be interesting to try that I think in Alaska, the reason that may not work quite so good is, there you've got this artificial agriculture.
Right.
And in Alaska, you got to have some reason for that wolf to be there.
The guy that's been doing this for years that they really made the documentary about, he liked specific pointy,
Channels.
sandy
Yeah.
channels.
Yeah.
And
It's basically what you do with anything.
it was pretty interesting. The guy had a dog or two. I don't know what they were, German Shepherds or something. And he'd release those dogs.
Lay their
and
scent down.
Well, he said, look for the most visible thing on that coastline. And that's where they'd go. And he said that dog would whiz on it immediately. And he said, that's where the wolf's going. And not necessarily because the dog whiz is probably going to get washed off with the tide too. But he said, that's where the wolves are going. Just
common sense.
Common sense, right? He said it's not some little nuanced,
Yeah.
6-inch log over here. It's a hunk
Yeah.
of something.
It's the exact same way in a cow pasture, though. If there's a sawed-off stump or a cactus that just draws your eye,
Right. That's where they'll go.
there will be coyote tracks coming up and going from that every time.
Right. Right.
Maybe it's just a canine thing.
Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, he said
Huh.
that's how the guy found his spots and had a lot of
That's
success.
pretty smart.
It was. I mean, the thought of, doing all that by boat up and down the coastline in southeastern Alaska.
Yeah, but
in
if you
December.
think about it, that's kind of brilliant because, you got, in that case, hundreds of pounds of gear.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Right.
my wolf, I've got a couple of wolf traps and they are heavy,
Yeah.
especially if they're the good, American-made ones. They're real heavy.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of a neat way, though, because you could have smooth travel at least. Otherwise, I don't know how you'd haul that. I don't think you
Right.
physically could haul that much
Right.
foothold gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it was, and Brunella, of course, is chiming in about Yellowstone and the experience with the wolves, and he's very, very articulate in explaining, kind of the whole big picture of wolves and wolf management. I mean, I think that's what they maybe termed the documentary. Just trying to be as kind of benign and neutral as possible, and then you make up your own mind. And obviously, the right thing is what
Well, the
Brunella
numbers
said.
don't lie.
Right.
We used to, we won't hunt Idaho anymore. It's doable, but I'd say at least 3 times harder and a lot fewer animals.
Right.
In the Selway, this has been 5 years ago. From 2009 to 5 years, it was 68% in the Selway wilderness on the elk calf survival rate, down 68% due to the wolves.
That's brutal.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, of course, they get in there and manage them, but they wasn't always that way. It took a lot of
Right.
politicking to show, and
Right.
then finally when the wildlife department started losing money, then they're like, oh, okay, maybe we should do something about this. This is bad.
Right. 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 And the guy, had definitely done his homework. He made the documentary, but to also, think how other states have handled it. In Alaska, you can't get back to the bait site, maybe for a week. So of course there are not time requirements of how often you have to check the site just due to weather and the vastness of it probably.
Yeah. Huh.
So that was fun.
So was there snow?
Oh, I'm sure there was.
Yeah.
They didn't show any of the documentary, but I'm sure December, southeastern Alaska, I would expect there to be. But I don't know.
So he's putting the traps and the tide is coming over the trap
Yeah,
and going back out?
He had different strategies. He had one that he put it where at like low tide, where it would come over it, and then he'd have some mid tide, then he'd have some
be
high
darned.
tide. Yeah, he definitely played the tides. Huh. Yeah.
Well, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's genius in terms of hiding human scent, in terms of the scent.
That's
just
the
getting
biggest
walked away.
challenge that they all talk about. So
Right.
the guys that I've seen in Canada that were known for that, as they all said it took about a week or more. So when there was, and they would learn these patterns of these packs, and so when they were moving through, they'd have to get in there, do as good a job on scent control as they could do.
Wow.
And then their thing was, you're not going to fool them. So don't try, because you're not going to,
Right.
unless you can get all this set up and everything stays in place, and they come through 2 weeks from now.
Wow.
But their nose is that good, so do it as good as you can.
Right.
But they said what works best is if you can get in there and get everything set up, and then you don't go in there.
Right.
And you use binoculars. So their locations were based on things they could check from a significant distance, because they felt that they could prove with their numbers that if they're even aware that you were in the area, their whole attitude changes.
Wow.
And they just don't want that. They wanted them to, just do their thing. You want them moving through confident,
Right.
and fast. And that's at least my trick when I finally got, because snaring seemed so impossible to me with coyotes, and in a lot of ways then it's actually even easier. It's far easier than footholds. The secret is you've got to make them, you give them the more confidence they have, the better. There's probably a spiritual analogy to it, right. But any form of, they know what they're doing.
Right.
If you mine the escape route that they know, I mean, they've got this. They can, yeah, I'm clean. And that's the deadly part of a snare, is that if they become trap wise, and if they are used to interacting and surviving around humans, and you just need them to feel like they've got you figured out. It's kind of an age-old trick, but even like a trap-wise coyote, I've only ever had one. It's really not that great of a story. I sure felt awfully proud of myself and confident. He was digging up my traps, so this became a game. And pretty much any trapper you probably talk to that's done it much will have with coyotes a story like this, and it becomes a game to them. The hard part about coyotes is they're typically so smart, and wolves are this way too, that they don't feel the need. I think they're one of the hardest animals to trap. They don't feel the need to prove that they figured you out. But every now and then you'll get one that does, and this one, he would dig my trap up. And one time, and I believed he was peeing on it sometimes, one time he pooped, at least right next to it. He may have even been trying to get it on it. But he would come at it from the side and flip it out of the bed, and I guess it was firing. I don't know. And that was back, if I'd had a cellular game camera, I would have worn it out, trying to figure out what he was doing.
Right.
But then it became a game to him. And I've had 3, intentional trap-wise coyotes that I knew of, but only one digger. And he would, so what's the secret is, just in case he doesn't get it, you let him see just a little bit of the pan. Let him dig them up. He flips them. It's a game to him. Then you reset it. You do everything like you always do in a new location. That way he thinks that you think you're being smart. You move. You do all your scent control. Same thing. You're not going to fool him. Not that soon. It takes about 5 days, I think, before they can't smell you. And then I leave a little bit. That way he sees it and he's like, uh-huh. He knows exactly what he's doing. And there's another one right in front of it.
Right.
And if he can see that, he won't even suspect it. He'll just go right to it and
Right.
a few guide sticks, because they don't want to, naturally, they just don't want to snap a twig in half. Just a few little tumbleweed sticks on the ground that he'll step around, and he'll put his foot right where you want it. The other one is blind trapping. So you set up, I had another one where he just wouldn't be caught, and he would dig out the bait from the backside. I mean, it's really pretty simple. You just reset, move an area, that way he thinks that you think you're being smart, and you set it up like normal, but there's no trap here. I didn't have enough traps. I set it on the backside. And what's interesting, I shared this with my brother. I don't know if he began employing it with his. We began to set our traps backwards, in which case we would typically approach a set kind of where, if you're in flat country, and on coyotes, they seemed to kind of avoid, if you wanted to catch them that night, they would kind of avoid that area that you had operated in. And I'm like really fast. And so my brother Jordan used to almost be a little bit superstitious about it, because he was just like, man, you just always catch stuff, your stuff, and he is right. I mean, it will, especially with coyotes, that scent can really mess with you. You'll catch some of them, but you won't catch all of them. So we began to sit and stand over here, and we would build a set for the coyote to approach from this side, and we weren't there. And it seemed to make them really confident. Like, okay, he wants me over, I'm going to go over here. You know, little stuff like that. But blind setting, which is what snares are, and so the coyotes will typically have some route of escape. And if you've got snares all along that, then if you can get them just really confident, like, ha ha ha, then they'll walk right into it every time. If they're really cautious, they won't. So there's probably a spiritual analogy to that. You know, the trick is to get them confident.
Right. Right.
But it'd be interesting to take some snares and try snaring like foxes or something out of an airplane.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it would.
I don't know where I'd have to think about where you'd go though.
Right.
The Aleutian Islands they're eradicating, you know, secretly. You don't have to dig very hard, but they've been exterminating the foxes on most of the Alaskan islands.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just don't want them?
Well, yeah, they believe it's endangering the seabirds. So, you know, they used to protect the foxes. Now they're wiping them out.
Right.
I guess it's getting all the net, and I'm sure they do. If they're apparently destroying these international bird sanctuaries, so now they're going in and wiping them out. But you could have gone there. I don't know, but that would be awful neat to do.
Yeah, it would. What else have you been thinking about?
Just wiring.
Yeah, wiring the plane. Any thought processes as you go through that?
Well, it's just thousands of connections, and you make every single one. You know, you have that one chance to make every single one perfect. And it's really not that hard to make every single one perfect. So just take the time right then to do it. And, you know, it's kind of a neat feeling to me. You know, it looks like a rat's nest, you know, right now, but it'll be a really solid operating system, you know. I can't imagine, you know, well, you physically couldn't have an aircraft this size with that kind of capability 15 years ago.
Right.
You know, it'd be absolutely impossible. I bet your wires would weigh 50 pounds. I mean, you can't have all the function we have. I mean, we have so much capability. You know, so much.
A lot of improvement to switches and.
Well, it's really just the wires. So every single function that you see, you know, in that airplane is there's a wire that's performing, 3 wires typically. So even the ability to hear the Morse code emitted by a VOR station, to have that converted to a digital audio signal that you can hear. Well, that takes that is a 2 serial wire connection, and that takes 4 of those because you've got to get it from the antenna to an analog to digital converter, from the digital converter to the audio panel to your headset. Just for that feature, which is optional, of course.
Right.
So you're going to get an analog signal that your GTN, your navigator can identify it for you, and it's going to tell you, well, this is the Lubbock Vortac. And it's been confirmed that this is the Lubbock Vortac. It's got a database, so if you tune it to that, but when it hears it, it'll register the Morse code and tell you, yeah, this is the Lubbock Vortac. It'll confirm it for you. So you don't even need to hear it anymore. But even if you just want that functionality, you know, which I put in, well, that's 4 wires. So, but that is now only 4 wires. A long time ago, the wiring for that, you know, the size, because of how you're communicating. So serial communication's been around for a long time. Now that's probably 1/3 of the wiring that's in this plane, and its only function is typically backup and non-essential stuff.
Right.
It's backing up high-speed data bus, Ethernet communication, and CAN bus communication. So we have, we got a panel like basically like a Boeing. I mean, all the capability and
Right.
all the tools you have at your fingertips and synthetic vision. I mean, that's a wire,
Right.
Everything. But now that's all on, most of our stuff's on CAN bus network from Garmin. And that's kind of changed aviation wiring big time and high-speed data bus, because now, like with CAN bus wiring, it's one wire. It's not, you don't have to do
Right.
this anymore.
Back and
It's just
forth.
one wire.
Right.
And it sends and receives down that one wire. And in fact, then you daisy chain everybody in a CAN bus communication. Everybody talks, and it's addressed. So it comes like, oh, that's not for me. Oh, that's mine. What do you want me to do? Okay, you want me to do this.
Right.
Happening in microseconds. But when you send a command to your autopilot, and let's say your autopilot's being driven by, you can have your autopilot driven by an analog Garmin GTN, goes through an analog to digital converter, or the autopilot can be, driven by the G3X, which is digital.
Right.
And in order to do that, it's just one wire. That it's not one wire to the autopilot, it's one wire throughout the whole CAN bus
everything.
network.
Wow.
So in spite of everything you're seeing, it looks like a rat's nest in there.
Right.
Just imagine. Well, you physically
It couldn't have
couldn't.
before.
Think
Right.
about a breaker panel.
Right.
Then every single function, an emergency function, and wire, anything, you need a breaker to protect it. Now you're going to run a wire to the breaker panel, from the breaker panel to that deal, and then back to the battery. I'm telling you, the wiring for a plane, it'd weigh 50 pounds, instead of basically about 4.5, 5 pounds that it is. It'd be ridiculous how much wire. It'd be physically impossible. You wouldn't have the room. You don't have the room.
Right.
And that's why everybody sees just like, how is all that in there? Well, it's technology.
Right.
It's how it communicates. So serial takes 3 wires, Ethernet's 2,
Wow.
and CAN bus is basically 1. But it's Ethernet still requires device to device. You can do like high-speed data bus and CAN bus, which is like super high speed, and it's like on a phone, an old party line.
Right.
That's the way you'd think of it, an old phone party line. So now you're just run a wire to this one, run a wire to this one, we're not talking power. That's all separate.
Right.
Now you're just talking, how do these things talk with each other? And the fact that now they talk with each other. Used to, only the great big Boeings had avionics that talked with each other. You had this one, and it had its air data and heading reference system. Then you had this, not even a display, this attitude indicator, and it had its air data heading and reference system. You had this speedometer, it had its pitot tube. This speedometer had to have its pitot tube. Nobody communicating, now they don't just communicate, they cross-reference, and they're like, we might have a problem. You don't trust this speed because we're getting a mixed reading and we think this is the issue.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
your altitude's off. Think about that. How many accidents, apparently even this one that, happened with that Black Hawk. Your barometric pressure setting, your altimeter setting isn't set correctly.
Right.
If you're flying a Garmin G3X and you got everything hooked up right, and it's cross-referenced and configured right, and it's cross-referencing, and everybody can see everybody can talk to everybody like that, between the 2 ADHARS units and the G3X, it's just like, you need to set your barometric pressure. It's off.
Right.
Oh, I'll be darned. It is. As soon as you fire it up,
Right.
it'll give you, and it's not like a timed warning. It's looking at GPS altitude,
Right.
because it knows where it's at. So it's talking with the navigator and saying, okay, here's where you're at. and you're sitting on the ground, your altimeter is off. That needs to be fixed.
Right.
And then as soon as you pull it down, probably within about 40 feet, I'd say plus or minus 20 or 30 feet of where you should be, then it'll click off and be like, okay, that's probably correct. Mm-hmm. And you can just call up and see what the actual setting is.
Wow.
So all that stuff requires wires. Everything requires wires, but the wires to perform all those functions now have, basically been slashed
right.
by at least a third. And if you count the fact that you're not device to device anymore, so you don't have these big hubs, where it's all kind of coming together, you can almost have 2 or 3 hubs. And then the reliability just goes off the charts, because if this thing goes down, everybody else is like, okay, that's down. They know that's down. They won't use that. It uses another one that's on the network. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then you just have serial backing that up. So then if the whole network goes down, we're back to the old-fashioned serial communication. So,
yeah, great technology improvement and safety.
It's amazing.
Redundancy and right down the line.
Definitely opens up what you can do. I don't know that they were, thinking about all of this for really extreme remote parts of the world, but man, there's nothing better for it.
Mm-hmm. Another great example of the times we live in. I mean, in terms of...
Yeah, I just wonder how much longer it'll last. I don't think that you will be able to grab an aircraft with, buy, let alone build an aircraft with that kind of capability like you can right now, and just more or less, willy-nilly go see the world. Mm-hmm. I just personally, I'm sure no people think that way, but my grandpa used to tell me about the stuff that his dad did
right.
when he came into this country. And my mom used to listen to his stories, just in utter amazement.
Right.
Wow, you could do that? Well, that wasn't illegal back then. Mm. Yeah.
Right.
And I've said for years now that I fully believe that my grandchildren, were I to live that long, will look at me and say, wow, you used to just go fishing in Colorado? Uh-huh. Whenever you wanted to. You didn't have to ask the government's permission.
Right.
No, you had to get a license. Now, when my great-granddaddy was alive, you didn't have to have one of those,
right.
but I'm not opposed to that at all.
Yeah, it helps pay for the...
Oh, yeah. I'm all for that.
Conservation.
So, depending on the state, some of them manage it very
they do.
well. New Mexico absolutely frickin' sucks, and Colorado does too. But yeah, we would just drive up into the mountains, and what would you say when you got to the checkpoint? Well, there were none.
There's no checkpoint. Right.
And they'll look at you like,
right.
There had to be. Well, there wasn't. Right. And you used to carry a gun? Oh, yeah.
Right.
And so when a coyote was like killing your animals, well, if you're even allowed to raise them, they may be amazed by the fact that you could grow your own food. Right. And I know people are like, wow, I thoroughly believe that you will see that, because we have come that far already since my grandpa.
Right.
When the stuff that he was able to do, that now, because of safety, you might hurt yourself. It's totally illegal.
Right. Right.
And even just, and it's funny, the aircraft accidents have only just begun to go down. And I believe that's due to technology. It has nothing to do with the FAA. That is because of technology like Garmin. But what's funny is the aircraft accidents, and you can see a lot of videos on this. They are like, well, maybe the statistics are, and that's the thing about statistics. They're only as good as their assumptions. However, when they brought in the whole pilot's license thing, like my grandpa, when he went to get his pilot's license, you said, hey, well, I need to get a pilot's license. Okay, here you go. Now you want to learn how to fly? Mm-hmm. Yes. And okay. at some point, when you feel like, you know how to fly, go with God.
Right.
Don't kill yourself or anybody else. Now, if you want to be a commercial pilot license, you're going to have to take some tests.
Right.
Make sure you don't kill anybody.
Right.
So he just went and said, hey, I want a pilot's license, and he knew a really good pilot who was a self-acclaimed, because there was nothing to it. Yeah, I'll be your flight instructor. I'll teach you how to fly. Taught him how to fly really good. Flew for years, never had an accident.
Right.
And you want a pilot's license, you fill out the form, mail it in, and they mail it to you.
Right.
It was a revenue system for the FAA. It wasn't a regulatory system.
Right.
So, you can argue about, well, yes, but what we have is so much better. Yeah, that's fine. That's not the point of this. I'm just saying So I guarantee you on that, this kind of technology being available to the common man, there is a time limit on it. I promise you. And
Right.
anybody with any wisdom knows what I'm saying is true. That my grandchildren will look at me in amazement that I even went fishing without asking. So you didn't have to schedule it. You didn't have to call. You didn't have. Best example is a lot of the European countries. So, I have a friend, him and his wife went to Europe, stayed with some folks that they knew-ish, and wanted to go over and see a castle. Okay, well, anything else we'd like to do? I got to put that in
A request.
to let them know what we're going to be doing and
Right.
get our travel clearance.
Right.
Oh yeah, not a free country.
Nope.
You'll get stopped at the checkpoint and you won't get to go see the castle that day if the government didn't say yes.
Right.
You can leave your home and go see the castle. What time are you going to be back? What time are we going to be back, dear? I got to, I'll tell them 11. That'll give us some breathing room. If they don't approve that, back it up to 10:30.
Right.
No joke.
Yeah. I mean,
And
that's
and-
amazing.
And yeah, and they would talk to him and they're like, it just must be so dangerous to live in America. I would not want to live in America. I don't know why everybody wants to go to America. That is so dangerous. Y'all just have, yeah, y'all may have that freedom. And he's scratching his head thinking, we did, we're losing a lot of it pretty
Right.
quick. But he's like, wow, I didn't realize how much freedom we actually have. But it had been that way since World War II.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's been a lot
In that country, in those
written
countries.
recently. It's a guy named Glenn. Is it Glenn Greenwald? No, it's Douglas Massey, who's written about the First Amendment, and to really think about the First Amendment. That one, other nations don't have it, but that broad spectrums of countries, Muslims, don't have the First Amendment. Europe does not have
Right.
the First Amendment. When you don't have the First Amendment, you don't have anybody telling you when you're wrong. You don't allow it. And when that happens, you become weaker and weaker day by day. So you could look at, the Christian community. Well, at some point there was a Reformation because the people got enough gumption,
Yeah.
primarily Martin Luther,
Yeah.
to
Hey,
nail some things.
fatso.
Right.
That's not what this says.
That is not what the Bible says. So I'll nail some things up at Wittenberg. But to think what that's done to the Muslim world, that they've never been told they were wrong. So they're in the same stagnation that they were in years ago. And even though they got tons of oil.
There's even a book written called The 1,000-Year War, and it was about a lot of times with the Islamic terrorist organizations,
Right.
because that's a next level. That's
Right.
another layer of with the terrorist organizations that these people had been indoctrinated into that
Right.
since their childhood. They were incapable of thinking
Right.
that they could be
Brainwashed.
wrong, to the point when it came to military strategy.
Right.
It's like that old guy, he said, it was like fighting children.
Right.
It's not that they were these insanely stupid people.
Right.
They were incapable of realizing someone could be smarter than us. But I thought we were blessed by Allah with we the truth. So
Right.
they're going to lose. because
Right.
I don't. As now it's come out in a lot of these books from the Navy SEALs. They were just laughing at these guys, like,
Right.
man, if these guys could shoot, we'd be
Right.
dead. But they'd go up 200 to 1 and come out on top every time.
Right.
And he said, now I feel so stupid because, you know, our interpreters told us, no, dum-dum, they're not trying to aim. Huh? It's not that they're that bad. They've been taught they don't have to aim because Allah will guide their bullets.
Right. Good luck with that.
And he was like, so if they'd been aiming, I might have gotten hit. He goes, yeah, but they don't aim. It's to show their faith in Allah. That's what they've been taught.
Wow.
Don't aim your gun, throw it around. Allah will guide the bullets where they need to go. And they believe that right up until the point they realize it's not working, and
Right.
they're dead.
Right. Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
classic example. So someone can say, okay, in the terrorist organization, should we learn to aim? I mean, I'm glad they don't,
Right.
but that's
Right.
what you're talking about.
And not to go political, but we've already gone political. I mean, think of certain political parties that they don't have a process by which they can get constructive criticism. Everybody
Oh, yeah.
needs constructive criticism, but when you're drinking out of the same
Drinking your own Kool-Aid.
right? You're drinking your own Kool-Aid, and I mean, look what's going on right now. They're lost.
Yeah, but that is why they say 95% of self-employed people fail. There's no way that's true. It has got to be 99% or more
could
now.
be.
It has to be. Because you see that in all these small businesses cropping up, and you're like,
right.
you think people are going to like that because you do? Well, of course, that's why they'll like it, because I like it. Who are you again?
Right.
No, they won't like that.
Right.
You're going to fail.
Right.
That's what we call drinking your own Kool-Aid. Huh?
Absolutely. Right. Right.
No, all my girlfriends have told me this stuff is awesome.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, this is strictly anecdotal. But today I stepped outside and we, out of laziness or it's just not that important to me, we hire a firm to take care of our yard. Because I hate that crap.
Oh,
I
you
just
have no idea.
It's just mind-numbingly
I used to tell my
stupid to me.
mother, because I had to mow a
Right.
lot. We all
It's
us
just
boys
gonna
did.
grow back.
And I said, well, you mark my words, woman. When I grow up,
Right.
because I live in
Have
West
some
Texas,
goats or something.
my lawn will be West Texas.
Right. Right.
We don't live in Tampa, Florida. Well,
Well, I walked up
you
and
get your butt out there on that mower anyways.
told that
And-
guy what a great job he did and how if he ever needed a reference, I'm not the type to typically do that, but I'd give him one. And the reason is that whole family is totally entrepreneurial. They think from the customer's perspective and they don't walk by something that's messed up. They proactively fix it. And they don't tell you they
Well, I
fixed it.
wonder where
It's
he
just
learned to
fixed.
do that.
It's a
They
fascinating
didn't get that
family.
in college. I'll
They're
guarantee you that.
not far from here in a community, and the dad is involved, and the dad doesn't even own the business. He works for one of the sons, and it just runs through that whole company. But I walked up to that guy today and I said, "You get it. You are an entrepreneur." And this isn't even the guy owning the company, but you know they've each got a leader, and they have to have a leader because they've got to be able to, and that guy's got to be bilingual because he's got to
Yeah.
be speaking to some of the people that are doing the work. Anyway, it's just fascinating to watch that somebody do something really well, as simple as yard maintenance.
Which I
But he
hate
sticks
so
out like a sore thumb.
passionately.
Oh, I hate it. I mean, yeah.
That and farming. I think that's why farming is too close to yard work, just doing those laps on the mower. I remember one time I got a job and I was $150 a day. You talk about filthy, stinking rich for a 16-year-old boy.
That's a lot of money.
No, I may have been 17. And I did it and it wasn't going to last forever. I think it was about, at the most I could probably do it was maybe a month. And my mom gave me some time off, school to go pursue that. And I was really wanting to kind of be with my grandpa anyways. And he was amazing. He could get on that tractor. This was a gigantic John Deere with GPS. And I'm plowing and he was just like, "Man, son, that's all right." And then he said, are you using this GPS? And I'm like, yeah, I figured out how to make it work. And he goes, oh, well, let me see you throw this thing down there half a mile. That's not, the miles are the long ones,
Right.
half a mile. And,
On a fence
oh,
post.
it was plowing, just crooked as a jaybird.
Right, absolutely. It's hard.
And, well, long story, the next day I was going to be using a tractor that didn't have GPS.
Right. Oh, he wanted you to be
And
able to
he
do it.
said, yeah, he'd kind of hooked me up with the job.
Right.
And he sat there for about 3 hours, and I would watch him, and he could take that row, and he
Right.
could just make it straight as a ruler.
Right.
And I'm like, how are you doing this? And he said, well, you use the horizon, use this, you know, it's feel, don't focus on any one thing, all this, you know,
Right.
stuff. And I never really could get it. I mean, didn't really care to per se, but I got it good enough thanks to him. But I remember 9 days later, I called my mom up and I said, well, guess what I will not be doing when I grow up?
Right. Being a farmer.
Oh, man.
Right.
Just that
It's brutal.
yard work. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I'm glad you found someone. If I had, I probably, you know, I'm sure it's really expensive, but if I had the money, it'd be worth it.
It really is.
For
and-
the peace of mind,
Right.
not dreading your weekend
Right.
in the growing season.
Right. They fertilize, they cut, they pay attention to the lawn sprinklers. I hate lawn sprinklers with
Yeah.
a passion.
They hate you, too.
They do hate you. They will break at the most inopportune time. And then, you know, you got to get the head. You got to dig it out. You got to, just it's no fun whatsoever. And we got enough ground, which is probably a mistake. Yeah. I like the old Southwest landscape a lot. I mean,
I like
sand,
West Texas
rock.
myself.
Yeah, that's what I
you
mean.
can hear the
Right.
yard work going on right
Right.
now with all the
Right.
blowing dirt.
Right, exactly. You'll get some new dirt, and it'll look about like the old dirt. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it
Yep.
does. I get no satisfaction in seeing green grass and knowing that I did the work, because I don't do the work anymore. It's just not satisfying. But yeah, in that family, I mean, you see the entrepreneurial zeal, and entrepreneurial zeal carries forward to nations, and you know, Europe. Stick a fork in it.
Oh, man.
Stick a fork in it forever.
Well, they're
for a
so
long time.
done because, like, listening to my buddy and his wife, they were just saying the level of indoctrination.
Right.
And those people think, like, you know, that must be terrifying to live in America. It's so dangerous that you can just have people going wherever they want, whenever they want. And I'm like, that's dangerous. And he said, well, that's what they teach them in school.
Right.
Isn't it great, y'all, that we have a government that keeps tabs on everybody, and we just don't have people getting on the Autobahn and bouncing to the other side of the country willy-nilly whenever they want to. We wouldn't know who's who and what's going on.
Right.
And that's why they're all throwing such a fit with all these immigrants coming into Europe, and the government is suddenly like, no, it's okay, they can do that, but you better have your travel paperwork in order. They don't need it because they're
Right.
immigrants. And that's why they're throwing such a big fit.
Right.
Which I'm just like, well, y'all deserve it, because I
Right.
cannot believe, you know, especially after World War II, and y'all are like, oh yeah, screw Hitler, but you know, let's have
Right.
a lot of those policies.
And again, without the vehicle of the First Amendment,
Oh, yeah.
where you have the
They've
right
never
to say
heard
that's
anything
a
different.
bad idea, and if you don't have that, there's just no
I
constructive
saw a deal
criticism.
today. They were saying the UK.gov put out a post on X, a warning, and had all the prosecutory laws they've come up with, and at the end, big white letters, it said, think before you post.
Think before, but there again, there's no other.
Is this
nation.
something that's going to send you in, put you in jail?
Right?
Before you say it, you better be careful.
Right. Right. And for us, it's not only what is still the First Amendment. It's the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. And if you don't have the opportunity to pursue the God of your choice, I mean, you're just headed to destruction.
Well, typically, in my observation, with the exception of China, spiritual persecution comes in the form of you can have the God of your choice, except not the God of the Bible.
Right.
You can choose anyone but that one.
Right.
That's what's very strange. I had heard a testimony once of an atheist who said that he almost was inclined to swallow the Bible whole for one reason only, is that in his observation, this isn't entirely the case, but it's mostly the case, there was no spiritual persecution around the world. That is the only one that everyone looked to and said, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. You can be Muslim, you can be Hindu, you can be Buddhist, you can be everyone, but you can't be a Christian. If you're going to be a Christian, you're going to die.
Right.
And you can't be a Jew because they use the same Bible. You're going to die for that too. And he said that which is why we call it Judeo/Christian, because it's the same God, same Bible. You can have any God you want except that one. He said that makes me think, what's there?
Right. Right. Yep.
Why that? And he said, and in my experience, the other religions also typically don't recognize evil.
Right. Right.
Judaism and Christianity, the Bible talks vehemently about it. Other ones, no, there's lessers, there's betters, there's different levels, but there's not a force of evil at work in the world. It's just all various levels of good.
That's why you have to have the law. That's why the Jews had the law, because only then can you set yourself against it and realize that's why you need a savior. You need a savior. And without the law, and obviously in the age we're in now, the age of grace, the law has been replaced, but it's still relevant, and there's still good and evil, and wages of sin are death, and it's very clear. It has to be. So Paul may be talking, it's the natural extension of the Old Testament where he says, I am the apostle. I am here to deliver a mystery to you that you've never heard before. But he's still talking about the law. It's just, it was replaced on the cross, for it's finished. And the cost of redemption has got to be the blood. So,
well, that's what I was talking about with, I heard a government trapper one time say, people are like, well, no coyote can be caught. And he goes, none that I've seen, but the uncatchable dog would be one who who believes that he can be caught.
right,
And so, or that he needs to be careful.
right,
And it's kind of he said, you're probably not going to catch that one. And he was just saying, I've done this a long time. You're not going to catch them all. And the ones you won't catch are those ones that are never. So, people are like, well, I don't need that. Well, probably the ones that's.
right. Not going to make it.
That's the snare.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I don't need to worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great white throne judgment type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now it all comes together. It definitely does. But when you look at Europe and
Yeah, it's all over the internet now, watching these women in Scotland and Ireland getting arrested for praying.
yeah,
I don't know why it's these women, but
right,
it's one of them. It's pretty interesting because she didn't deny it. She just said, so, and he said, well, if you weren't praying, you were at the very least meditating, and you heard,
wow,
at the council
right,
in this area, this is for Islam.
wow,
We know you're not that. You're not dressed right. So which is it, lady? Were you praying? You're not even supposed to be meditating here. What were you doing? I watched you. I've got it on camera. You bowed your head for at least 30 seconds. You stood still, and I think your eyes were closed. Now, you want to fess up, or do we need to take this down to the station?
wow.
And you're just like, wow, that's happened for centuries.
Right, it is.
But it's just interesting now.
Right.
And a lot of UK, and Irish and Scottish and, Englishmen, and they're all standing up saying, you can't do that. We have rights. Well,
Not
since
really.
when?
Right.
See, we fought a war over that a long time ago, and we're
exactly
fast
right.
losing ours too, but
Right.
you fought us because you said people shouldn't have rights. Now
Right.
you're standing up saying they should. I mean,
Right.
no, you don't have rights.
They really
I mean,
don't. I mean, we have a constitution with a Bill of Rights
yeah,
in
it says who?
Right. Well, right. And you know, here we still have to fight it constantly because some pinhead district federal judge will decide, oh, I don't think you have the right to be the executor of the executive branch. Yeah, I do. There was an election, so I do. But if the judicial system says he doesn't, I mean, then you've lost the nation. And then you've, it's fascinating to watch. It really is. And we know at the end of the day how it's all going to end.
Yeah.
You
Not
just
good.
don't know when. Yeah, it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah, eventually, it loses. I think it's from some dumb movie like Star Wars or something, but my buddy Mike was always saying that is so true. He said, I think it was in a stupid movie, but he said, yeah, freedom doesn't go out, with a whimper
Oh no.
or a cry. It goes out with a cheer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It does. I mean,
People give it up.
Right. Right. And it's always the battle over power and control. I mean, the evil forces just want power and control at all cost, and the other folks can be trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But
I'm still convinced someday that some young child will look at me in absolute amazement that you built a gun from steel and wood. You built airplanes and you flew them.
Right.
You've actually seen Alaska.
Right.
I maybe if I get through school and get good marks, I'll be approved to get to see
Right.
the land north of the 72nd parallel. But because of human contamination,
Right.
I don't know if I could ever maybe I could get a job that would give me permission to go up and see the parts of Alaska that you've seen. Yeah, maybe so.
Right. Right.
And up there they'll be like, maybe I'll get to go see Texas one day
Right.
if the government allows it.
Right.
I fully believe that.
Yeah.
I may not live long enough to see it, but if I lived to be my grandpa's age, I fully believe that's what I will see.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's why it is, exciting to think about having a
We
tool.
better use it.
Right.
Because that's
use
what
it.
my grandpa used to
Do
say.
it.
I wished I had known
Right.
that you would not be able to do that one day.
Right.
But at the time, and it was almost everything, he always should have bought that thing. Man, I should have done that. And I determined even as a kid, I'm not going to be like that when I'm going to, and he told me, well, then don't.
Right.
Do it.
Right.
Because I used to think, I don't want to have this he just had a laundry list of.
Right.
But I thought that you'd always be able to go do that. I
Right.
thought I'd always be able to go fishing up there.
Right.
I thought I would always be able to go,
Right.
into the Gila with a bow and go elk hunting.
Right.
The concept of getting a draw. And,
Right.
well, if he'd known it was going to go to that, because he was just like, hey, I'm going to work hard, and one day I'll retire, and I'll get to go hunting and fishing in the Gila all I want.
Right.
Nope.
Right. Well,
By the time he got done farming and retired from the fire department,
right.
it was more or less the world we have now. And he just said, now in truth, he said, I hunted and fished too much. And I didn't put my family and God first, mostly God.
Right.
So he wasn't saying that. He was just saying that there's all kinds of things that him and his dad that he wished he had done had he known that one day you wouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
And so he was always telling
Well,
me.
if you look at what's happened in certain states, non-resident hunting.
Well, like
going
Colorado.
away.
So it's so funny. I was
Perfect
telling my buddy
example.
Kelly this like 5 years ago. I said, I fully believe that one day I will tell my grandkids, if I have any, that, yeah, you could just go hunting within reason. You buy your license. But you mean you just got to pick, take off work or you know what? Never mind. I'm throwing my stuff in an hour. I'm going to be hunting tomorrow, says me.
Right.
And you could just do that, and you just would and the gun was in your house, you didn't have to go get it at the police department like they do in Australia.
Right.
Yeah, you just kept it in your house.
Right. Right.
They'll just be in utter amazement. And then you mean you could eat it? I mean, technically on the books, the FDA's already done away with that. Yeah, we used to butcher our own animals. So you actually knew, where do you shoot an animal to kill it ethically? It'll just
Right.
like I was with my grandpa about totally different things,
Right.
typically that had to do with, the frontier, nature, and pheasant hunting.
Yeah.
Whoever thought that would come to an end.
Right.
That was one of the things he said he just would have really appreciated it,
Absolutely.
not knowing that it was going to go away.
If you look at DeerCast, they've had a story for the last 2 years, the state of Kansas, Midwest type state. There's been a bill introduced. I don't know if it got out of committee the second time, but it could, that they're going to make non-resident landowners incapable of hunting their own land.
Yeah.
Because
There you
they're
go.
afraid that people are driving up the land prices in Kansas. Oh, heaven forbid. I mean, if you're selling, it's okay that the prices are going up.
That
And
makes
that-
everybody's land worth more.
It's
What
exactly
is the
right.
matter with this deal?
I know. I mean, the rationale.
Yeah,
It was a really-
I've heard that rationale.
It was a
before.
well-written article
But,
because it said, it put the pros and the cons, and you go, explain to me again.
I've still got magazines of guys, kind of going back into the real, of the Sangre de Cristos and stuff in Colorado, where you can get pretty freaking remote.
Right.
And beaver trapping and, licenses and all that.
Right.
Beaver trapping and lynx trapping and all
Try
that.
that now.
That was made illegal when I was a kid.
Right. Right.
When I was a kid, I was 18 when they banned trapping in Colorado. Now they ban, non-resident hunting, and it'll be hunting next.
Right.
And so I thought it was going to be my grandkids, shoot.
Right. Right.
I could be telling one of my kids, well, believe it or not, when you were little,
Right.
this is everything you could do. We could just go up, like I can tell them, when you were born, I could just go up into Colorado and go hunting anytime I felt like it.
Right.
It's illegal now.
Right. Right.
I mean, all that stuff I've said, that'll happen in time.
Right.
It's happened in every nation in history until there's, then it tends to come around and correct sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. There haven't really been all that many revolutions that have really worked out well. One could make the argument.
Most of the time, it's a pretty bad idea.
The USA's worked out for 250 years, but now there's forces definitely pushing against that.
Yeah. Well, we're a big problem for the rest of the world,
We are.
especially for Europe. They got a lot of reasons for us not to
Right.
be like them, because you have all these people in the UK standing up and saying, yeah, the First Amendment. And
Which they
the
don't
judges in UK are like, what?
Right, we don't have
You're not
that.
in America.
Right,
Why do you think, and they're like, man, we got to do something about that. The whole world thinks they got rights because of America. Wasn't for America, the world wouldn't think that.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, and they've had their bout with open borders. It hasn't ended well at all. And
Well, they deserve it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and
They asked for it.
right, and turning away from God has just been overwhelming, and all throughout
That's
Western.
probably why ours are, there is a verse in the Bible about that. The scripture says, when you turn from the Lord, he will turn your land over to strangers.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And if you read in the
He also says he will give you over to be ruled by many rulers,
right,
which is a way of saying you just have gridlock, kind of like what we have now where nothing gets done.
right,
That's what Doge and
Right.
Trump are cutting through. Congress is totally incapable.
right,
Any branch of government has been incapable of doing what needs to be done.
right.
It seems to be happening now, but
Right. And you read about Israel. Anytime that the Jews weren't there, whether they were in exile down in Egypt or they're in Babylon or whatever, the place went to complete crud, and their enemies never came in and took it over. I mean, I got to believe if we're taken out tomorrow, the world will come to the United States because they want our stuff and they want what's here. But it never happened in Israel. And, you know, Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain's waltzing through there in 1850, and he's talking about what a desolate place.
And if you go there now, it's so lush, it's unbelievable.
Exactly. It started in 1900, and that was the draw that brought them back for the nation to be recreated in 1948. And yeah, it's just getting lusher, more and more lush. Yeah. And the Bible talks about that.
Yeah, it says it would.
Yeah.
At the end.
Exactly. So it is good to take the time to try to understand what God has shown us and in the Bible, and whether it's, you know, the manuscripts that are available, 25,000 of them in the New Testament. The next thing, what maybe Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, the 500, archaeology, prophecy, and the scriptures themselves against each other. It shows you so clearly. You just got to be willing to read it and read it in an open-minded fashion, and not necessarily read it with, you know, what people are telling you.
Well, there's a lot of human reason to not do that.
Right.
I think the Bible calls it the offense of the gospel. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like telling someone who's not good at something, hey, you suck, you're not good at it. Do you want to be good at it?
Right.
I don't suck. Okay, you won't be good at it. Next. You suck. Do you want to be good at this?
Right.
I do suck.
Right.
Yeah, I want to be good at that. Oh, no problem. You can be.
Right.
Here's how.
Right. Right.
So you have to admit that you suck.
Right. Right. And that faith plus nothing equals salvation. Mm-hmm. Because if you think it's works, or you think, you know, it's you, or you think it's this world, no, it's faith plus nothing, because Christ did it on the cross for you. It's over. It's finished. And but so many people, I mean, look at all the cults that just, you know, they got to add to it, and it doesn't work that way.
Yep.